Ulonkata bati yada tó yẹ kó máa da ifá. Inú tó yẹ kó jẹun ló fi bí pa. Ọba tálá, ọba takuntakun. Ṣàngó, Èṣù, Ògún, Ọya, Ọ̀ṣun. Ìwọ ló ń bọ̀ nílé. Kí ni ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ tán ṣe nílé yìí o? Ó jẹ́ lọ jára rẹ̀.
Alapia, peace and blessings, peace and blessings. Welcome to another episode of the African Spirituality Experience. I'm your host, Orisha Bam. Family, we back once again with the Big Chief back in the building after burning it down last time. We about ready to burn it down again, man, and make it do what it do. Big Chief, appreciate you, man. Peace and blessings. How you doing?
Oh man, been taking it easy, going with the flow.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Listen. After that last one, man, the tribe been going crazy. I'm talking about the whole channel been going crazy about, that last conversation, man. So I told everybody, I'm going to try to make it happen again as soon as possible. So, man, we here, we back, and I'm ready to get it in again, man. What you say?
I stay ready, don't get ready.
Yes, sir. That's what's up. So let me ask you this, because before we get deep into the topic at hand tonight, what would you consider to be an extraterrestrial experience? Like, have you had any that you, or what would you define that as? What would you classify that as in regards to your perspective?
A day-to-day experience.
I say.
Look, when they say extraterrestrial, right?
Mm-hmm.
That an experience that's extraterrestrial, meaning experience that's extra than what you've experienced before. Right.
That's fact.
So if you think about it, all of your day-to-day movements is extraterrestrial movements. We flying through space at 1 billion miles an hour, all extraterrestrial.
That's facts. Yeah, that's deep. And since the last episode, I got a chance to do a little research on some of the topics that we was chopping it up on, and so I definitely want to get into a little bit of that. But I had an experience this past Saturday, man, which was nuts, because I was sitting at the in the living room on my sofa, and I had like a tray table up, and I was on the laptop doing a little work or whatever, and I smelled this fragrance come across my nose. And so when I smelled it, I knew it was something different. And because I don't believe I've ever smelled that fragrance before, but also I knew it was an extraterrestrial event within, the comfort of my own home. Like, it was a presence that was
there. It could have been interdimensional.
Well, that's what I was getting to. I feel like it was, because check this out. I promise you, within 2 to 3 minutes after I had the fragrance come across my nose, and I spoke, said, I forgot what I said, but I spoke to it. And like 2 or 3 minutes later, an elder called me and was like, "Hey, you all right? You good? Everything straight?" He was like, "The ancestors told me to reach out, to check on you." And bro, when I tell you it blew my mind, like it blew my mind, because I'm like, yo, that's nuts. Like, I mean, within a 2 to 3 minutes, timeline. So it was like, that's something that I've had multiple different types of experiences in regards to something that I felt like was extra, terrestrial. It was different for sure. But with you, and I know you had a lot of those experiences as well. We spoke about 1 or 2 earlier, I think today or yesterday. But when it comes to something we tapped into but didn't go far down the rabbit hole with last show, is mushrooms and, like, what is it, DMTs or something along that line? Something like that, what they call it? Like,
yeah, those open up the channel for psychic experience.
I say. And that's what
it ain't that you don't have the channel, but for generations of not using the channel, the youth now is finding interest in the ancient ceremonies that opened you up to those experiences. Because once your mind been stretched to a certain limit, it can't go back. So if you have a DMT or a mushroom experience or a peyote experience, that stretched your mind beyond what you thought was your limits, and it can't go back. It can't go back to the state it was before, because now all of that information is within the confines of the mind. It's stretched. So they use the psychotropics to give alternative experiences in order for people's spiritual senses to reactivate.
That's deep. Now, how does that relate to, like, the movie Doctor Strange and what they showed in that movie in regards to these experiences?
So Dr. Strange started off as a physician that was a savant, right? So he's already a genius intellectually. Now, when he goes to the lady that's the ancient, her job is to unlock his right hemisphere, abstract reasoning, to give him the wisdom to control the forces of magic. So it's really telling the story, the ancient story of Tahuti and Heka magic.
That's deep. And so is that some sort of correlation to what we saw with Neo in the Matrix when he went to see the Oracle?
Yeah.
Actually.
The significance of the Oracle that was talking to Neo, that's Big Mama. Right? Before we go do anything, we always consulted with the Oracle. Just read the stories of the oracles of Delphi. Those are Egyptian priestesses that was operating in Greece. And they were the ones that penned the Greek language for the Greek people. And that's why their civilization was Hellenistic, because Helen was the name of the position of the priesthood that gave the culture to Rome. So she became the goddess Helen in Rome, in Greece. She usurped in Rome, because in Rome, Helen is a man. And this is your beheading of Medusa story. Medusa is a rank for the side priestesses. Medu meaning 10, meaning the highest rank, because she had to master all of the disciplines. So the Gorgons are the ones who was the three sisters, right? In the Voodoo, we call them Oya, Yemiya, and Oshun, right? So they steal the three sisters, and they was fighting the war against the Roman invasion, and this is why they always paint them as grotesque, because they've drawn the rage out of the warrior woman. So all of those goddesses of ancient days, that they got those terrible looking images of, and they face all grotesque, because that's them in waging war on the patriarchy when they was usurping the sacerdotal seat. Priest wars. Wizards versus witches.
Yes, sir. That's deep. That's real deep. I'm glad you said that. So now we talk about that. We hit on the last episode that America is the home to the oldest Isis temple in the world, right? So when it comes,
Arizona.
Yes, sir. Now, with that being said, when it comes to that, right? I was doing some research, like I said, since the last call, and one of the things that I kind of stumbled upon that was a little new to me, or I just forgot it, refreshed my memory, but there's a crown that Isis or Aset wears, right? And if I'm not mistaken, there's 7 cobras across the top, just like you will see the one cobra and the bird on the front of the pharaohs and the queens and the kings of Kemet's headdress. Do the 7 cobras or snakes or serpents represent the 7 continents of the globe? The 7 snakes that are on
those are the 7 sisters of the Pleiades. So when she put that on her headband, that means she's channeling those 7 wise ones, the Nagas queens in 7s, they 7 sisters. So when the chosen son come, he get baptized, he get blessed by 7 Marys. His birthright is secured by finding 7 Aunt Ruths. Because Ruth is the one who is the money pot. She's the one that need to be redeemed.
Yes, sir.
And we all got an Aunt Ruth in our family.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right? I got 7 Aunt Ruths. I got 7 godmamas named Mary.
We about to go ahead, buddy.
Or some variant thereof. My first godmama, my big mama name was Mother Margaret.
Yep. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And we just used to call her Big Mama.
Buckle up, tribe. Grab your mask. Save yourself first before the women and the children, because we're about to take off. All right. So now with that, when you said that, especially when you're talking about the money and the wealth, that is attributed to Oya. You know, when you're talking about the Ifa, you know, it's African church, spiritual traditions, right? And also, she's a deity who's attributed to the storms. She's attributed to transformation, birth and rebirth. You know, death to the old, birth to the new. You know what I mean? So, what comedic deity would be maybe the closest one that would kind of be, you know, a parable to her or correlate to her energy, you know, in the Ifa Isheshe tradition?
Those are concepts,
Right.
In the Kemetic tradition, it would be Aset, Het Heru, and Het Hathor, or not Hathor, because that's Het Heru, and Sekhmet.
I see.
Right. So they show you the image of Isis with two lions. The two lions represent Sekhmet and Het Heru. Het Heru is the female earth heir, and she's represented as the female cow. And so the cow's still sacred in India. And because they still got different renditions of the same idea, and the cow is the symbol that represents that idea of the matriarch, the mother with the udders. We call them big mamas with the big tatas, right? Because they used to suckle the world. When the orphans come in, some of them mamas couldn't suckle them, so they had to give them to the big mama. And some of them, that's where you get your wet nurse concept from. That's tribal. Because there used to be women in the community that used to take care of the children as like similar to a daycare. And she would suckle the different children at different times. And she'd probably be 4, 5, 6, just like her in there, depending on how many children they got. That's where that whole idea come from. That's some tribal Mississippian backwoods shit.
Yeah. That's deep, because I was watching, shout out to the brother Billy Carson's Forbidden Knowledge. I was watching an interview he had maybe about 3 weeks ago. I think it was before you and I met and had our first interview, but he interviewed some people who were from the Palladian star system, and they said that they were the elders from the land of Mu, from Lemuria. And it was dope because they shared some sacred stones that were very powerful stones that were definitely from, you know, out of this world. And they were sharing like some of the stories about those stones and how powerful and significant they were in regards to, you know, their home star system.
You got to look at, they already told us, but they told it to us in comic theatrics that's exaggerated. They told us about the vibranium, the what's that stuff Wolverine got?
I can't remember the name of it, but that's what makes his that's what makes
antimonium.
It makes it indestructible.
Right. Then when you go to the Avatar movies, you had the unobtainium. Right? They telling you that it's the gold the whole time, and that certain people's presence on the earth causes the earth to produce gold in its veins. Those are the golden ones.
That's deep. Now, let me ask you this. I just saw something earlier today, if I'm not mistaken, and it was regarding Trump and his efforts to, I guess there's some sort of, they're trying to transition back into the gold standard in regards to the currency. Have you heard anything about that? So can you
that's always been the plan, because the fiat system, it had a system of taxation on one end and inflation on the other end. So the only way to eliminate taxation and inflation is through tariffs and through by money that's backed by substance. Right? Adamantium, that's what we're made out of. And so when they when a new system takes power, right?
Mhm.
System that's founded on substance is the system that's going to last the longest. The American system was an interim government that was only had a 200-year contract that we didn't make, but people came over here and made on our behalf, like they had the right to speak up for us. And check out Young Elder tomorrow, because I'm gonna be going over some receipts and I'm gonna show y'all how they was doing the treaties. And I say that we didn't sign all them treaties. That's fraud. And by canceling the treaties, it cancels the contracts of the municipalities, what we call your city charters. The charters all trace back to London, England, by way of the Federal Reserve banking system.
Yeah, that's deep, because we kind of tapped in a little bit on that on the first one too, in regards to how that's connected to the papal and to the Vatican and all that stuff. So now I saw also, and I'm glad I thought about this, because this is something else I wanted to go through with you. I saw the a lot of coverage regarding shout out to the brother Ibraham Trayori out of Burkina Faso. A lot of coverage between him and Putin, and Putin invited him to I forgot the name of the day, but that day they just had recently in Russia. Where do you see that in regards to the shift in powers, especially when it comes to allies and enemies with the West? Where do you see that position in Burkina Faso with whatever that situation was with him and Putin?
Hey, hold on, my phone just went out. Let me go out and come back in.
Okay, no problem. Okay. Yeah, family. Shout out to everybody joining us. We appreciate y'all. Big Chief is gonna slide out and fall back in. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties, but we're gonna continue to make it do what it do. For those who are new to the channel, we appreciate y'all, appreciate the love and support. And unfortunately, we deal with these difficulties. Sometimes I feel like it's organic. Sometimes I feel like it's past interference on the play. But we got Big Chief back in now. So yeah. With that, you were saying in regards to that, the meeting with Trayori and Putin. What do you see as significant with that meeting?
It's the passing of the baton from the old world to the new world. The old world have to publicly acquiesce and bow to the new world. The people that was assigned from two sides of the ocean to bring this to a close is the one who came up from the dirt in Russia, who y'all call Vladimir Putin, and the rich boy that came up in America, y'all call him Donald Trump, Agent Orange. So this show collaboration of two sides of the ocean, the two pillars of the earth, representing the two superpowers. The superpowers that was at Cold War with each other for 70 years. The same superpowers that generated the most high-tech espionage networks in the world. The same two superpowers that gave each other technology that produced the atomic bomb and other technological advances between the two nations, right? So the fallacy of Russia and America being enemies, when Russia was the only ones that sent support to the natives of the land when they seized Alaska from the French and the Spaniards that was attacking us on the west, that decimated the Caliphate queens, right? Her castle used to sit where Alcatraz at. They bombed it into oblivion with the Spanish Armada. And then they wrote the fictional tales of the encounter with the Amazonian women, which is another story for the Caliphate queens, because they ruled all the way from California to the Amazon going around south. And the women used to go there to do women's retreat rituals for cleansing and healing, like after childbirth, after relationship breakups or a person die, they used to go to the Califia queens for healing, spiritual healing, right? And the men would be on the mainland and they protected the castle from the mainland. But they hadn't experienced no shit like that Spanish Armada, right? They built a replica because they got to give us a means to discover what they did. So they had to build a replica of the Califia Castle. And you see it every time you watch a Disney movie. The replica of the Califia Queen's Castle. And women used to come from all over the world to learn the science of love and the art of making a family peaceful and happy from the highest evolved feminine position of royalty.
I sure.
The culture hasn't changed. We just put on modern clothes.
Mm-hmm.
You still have people trying to bring back the old culture, right? When they used to wade in the water, that's not just a gospel song, that's a tribal coded liberation song. Because when the women go back to dressing in the white and doing the water rituals of cleansing and balancing their energy to the spiritual synchronicity between water and spirit, they become a whole different creature. And we got heaven on earth again.
Yes, sir. So that's deep. So I got some questions I want to follow up with that, but we had a tribe member drop a good question I said I'll bring to the floor. So I'm gonna ask from the tribe real quick before I go into mine. So shout out to Yin Yan Princess says, what's the difference between Russia and is it Prussia? Prussia?
Yeah, when it was Prussia is when it was under it was a whole empire. It covered almost 60% of northern Europe. Was called the Prussian Empire. And it was a rival empire to the rise of the Italian Roman Empire. Right? So they fought wars between each other. They culminated with the Bolshevik Revolution and the assassination of Tsar Nicholas, the rightful blood heir. And he wasn't pale-faced.
That sounds like the black nobility type stuff.
It was because in Europe, the Inquisition, the French Revolution was the infighting from the invaders that came out of the Middle East. They came up through Turkey as Ottomans became Byzantine kings. They went across northern Africa being chased across the desert sands until they crossed into the Iberian Peninsula for the shenanigans they was doing. Elijah Muhammad tell you what they was doing. Everywhere they go, they cause mischief and bloodshed. They find two peaceful people, sow the seeds of dissension between them. This is called divide and conquer.
Yep.
And when they fighting each other and they about to kill each other in the heat of the moment, while they at the heat of the passion, they step in the middle and say, I can solve your problem if y'all listen to me. And then he stick his hands out to get paid. So I say for a fee.
Yeah.
So they came into Europe as the Etruscans and Phoenicians, settled Italy, making Rome. Tuscany was before it was Rome, Italy. So during this time, you have the birth priestesses birthing new civilization in Greece. Right? Remember, the first university in Europe was on the island of Crete. And it was developed and staffed by Egyptian priests and priestesses.
That's deep. That's real deep.
The Jacobite is the imposter.
Mm.
The earthborn is the original. How do we know this? What do Jacob mean? It means supplanter. What do a supplanter do? It burrows under the root to replace the original.
Mm.
Right? And so the supplanter is the one coming to steal the birthright. They tell you that in the story of Jacob and Esau.
Mm.
Jacob being Jacob. Jacob being the supplanter. To conceal his identity and his purpose, they changed his name to Israel.
Listen.
So now he's living his life with an alias.
Mm.
He's no longer Jacob the supplanter. He's all of a sudden, voila, I'm an Egyptian now.
Now, that's funny because I just saw something today I meant to send you before we got on the doggone air to share on the air, but maybe we'll do it on the next one. But okay, now when you say the Jacob character, now in regards to that, are we talking about the big-headed scientist? Is that the same character, the Jacob character?
Which was originally metaphoric, but he did have a fat ass head. But we be calling people that to imply they're extra smart. Remember, the term brainiac and the term nerd came from a school of ours called Brainerd University, which was one of the elementary schools that would produce nothing but geniuses. So when you've been hearing people calling somebody a nerd, a geek, right, or a brainiac, all that come from Brainerd University. It was brought back to life by Felicia Rashad and Debbie Allen.
When did they bring it back to life? Was it in a movie or a show or something?
No, in real life.
Get out of here.
In real life. If you follow Felicia Rashad and Debbie Allen, and they were they refighting, they raised money to bring Brainerd University back.
Wow.
With their curriculum.
Wow. That's dope. I never heard of that. That's deep. That's real deep.
It's a lot of what we, because the celebrities are under contract that they're not supposed to do nothing for their community.
Yep. That's how they get
all until the duration of the contract expires. That's to keep them out of community activism work. Because because we believe in breaking bread and helping each other get on our feet. So when you start making $100 million as a basketball player, football player, baseball player, your natural instinct is to go back and put your whole town on.
Right.
I'm finna go put all my homeboys on now. So they needed to stop that. Because of people like Debbie Allen, like Ruby D and Ozzy, they were doing work with the people and they was using their celebrity status. And because they was educating the people, they became just as much of a threat as a frontline civil rights activist on the dark Mississippi road.
Yeah, that's deep. Shout out to the brother Jaylen Brown too, from the Celtics. He been doing a lot of work like that too. He's been doing a lot of work. So now that's real deep. Yeah. So the thing
with Kyrie, they can't contract Kyrie not to do anything for his people because Kyrie it is against his culture and his religion, his tribal religion. You can't stop me from doing for my people. And whoever his lawyer is probably invoked that in the contract negotiations. Because Kyrie be doing all kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But see, we forget about Craig Hodges though.
Yeah, I just saw something recently. He was sharing his story. I think it might have been on Matt Barnes and the other brother Stephen Jackson's podcast, if I'm not mistaken, where he got blackballed. He was actually talking about how he got blackballed from the league for that.
Yeah, for wearing the dashiki to the White House. The best 3-point shooter in the league.
Yeah. Yeah.
The number 1 3-point shooter in the league.
Yeah.
And they kicked him out for expressing his cultural identity.
What about Mahmoud Abdul Rauf? He got blackballed in the league too.
Yeah, but he was nutting up though. We could use all his ethnic passes, but he don't need none.
I think he was dealing with a health issue too, though. Didn't he have like, I don't know if it was like Tourette's or I don't know if it was MS. There's something, I think he had some sort of like health issue too. I think that was messing with him. Wow. Okay, I tell you what. So now with the Russia thing, because you dropped a lot of jewels on that. Can you talk to, especially with today's overall theme, but we're gonna hit a lot. But can you kind of speak to Russia's like their part in regards to this thing called like the extraterrestrial technology and extraterrestrial like ships and crafts that have, I think crashed or either been shot down on Russian territory that they were able to reverse engineer, which led them to be the first, if I'm not mistaken, ones that quote unquote went into outer space in regards to like in the last few hundred years worth of time. Does those kind of tie into what we're talking about? Who rose up from the?
So they got all that technology from Adolf Hitler.
That's where I want to go.
The technology was split between Britain and America, Russia, and France. This is where we get Operation Paperclip, where they bring in all of the Nazi scientists and start NASA. That means they already in contact with extraterrestrials at this time. Adolf Hitler was a contactee, and the dude they keep telling us Adolf Hitler, and they keep showing us this cracker. That's not Adolf Hitler.
Like a double, or like
no,
like you said,
he was a parody. That guy was a parody of Adolf Hitler.
Kind of like
a Charlie Chaplin. He was a Charlie Chaplin type actor. Just like they put that skin mask on Jim Carrey to play Joe Biden.
Wow.
It's the same thing, and that ain't changed. The strategies that they've been using is the same thing, concealing identities in order to push the agenda further. They just ran into the wrong one.
Yeah. Now, how does that tie into the Thule Society and what is her name? Was it Madame Blavatsky?
Madame Blavatsky, right? So the Thule Society infiltrated Madame Blavatsky's Theosophical Society because she had what they considered real deal knowledge,
and the power to like remote view too, right? To be able to kind of remote.
She was doing all kind of stuff. Her information is powerful. So they put a smear campaign out on Madame Blavatsky, but she was like one of the spearheads of the spiritualist movement of the late 1800s, early 1900s. The spiritualist movement in America was triggered by people looking to find a remedy for the conjure of John Dee that he gave to the Queen of England in order to put the people under a hypnotic trance in America. So this is why they gave us the assassination of Crispus Attucks, and they can't let us forget who shed first blood. Because this is how you gonna determine who was the defender and who was the attacker. That's how you gonna know who is white on the chessboard and who is black. Right? The black pieces, they consider him already dead because the white piece moved first. He drew first blood. Right? And what did he do with his bloody hands? He covered the mouth of the women so that they couldn't scream. While you violate them. So now, in remembrance of any other sisters, you see them wearing the bloody handprint on their mouth. Because they was warned with the threat of death not to say nothing when they got abused.
Right.
It's the same enemy. The enemy cloaked himself Over here, Noble Jew Ali discovered them in New Jersey as Moorish Zionist Jews. Right? So then, as a counteroffensive, he created the Moorish Science Temple. Right? Because he got to fight conjure magic with conjure magic. Right? All of the chiefs know that back then. It's common knowledge, just like it's common knowledge that Tupac was a rapper. Same type of common knowledge.
Yeah, that's deep. That's real deep. And then, so because that goes back to, especially when you talk about the technology for the flying saucers, the technology for the crash that the Nazis and Hitler and all of them had access to. Now, when we get into this part of the conversation, because we about to go ahead and start, raising the altitude. When we get into that part of the conversation, where does the correlation and the connection of the Nazi Germany's, society in regards to like extraterrestrial technology and crafts, but then how does that tie into why Antarctica is so?
One of the things they discovered in theosophy is something called the Mahatmas. These were monks that kept ancient scrolls in the mountains of Tibet. So he sent a guy named Heinrich Himmler on an expedition to recover the scrolls. And they got a secret portion of scroll from the chapters of a text called the Vamana Sutra. The Vamana Sutra teaches you or gives you the blueprints to create anti-gravity flying apparatus. So they get a head start. They used modernization to try to update all of the graphics and update the technology that was being used so that they can make the craft more efficient. So those were the projects Hitler had them working on, right? And once they made contact with extraterrestrials, the game plan now has to take a drastic shift. On chess, that's called castle.
Yeah, that's deep. So what is the significance to that whole, the Nazi movement and all that with Antarctica? Because I know they have the poles blocked off and all that. What's the significance in that, and why is that?
Because when Adolf Hitler got a hold of the ancient world map, he found a place called Tartarus. And this is why everybody keeps saying Tartaria. But the place is Tartarus. It's spoke about also in the book of Enoch. And this is the land that was under the ice in Antarctica. They had already received the reports from Admiral Richard E. Byrd about his experiences in Antarctica. That was way before World War II.
Yeah.
So once they
30s, when was that?
1927, I think it was 1927 or something like that.
Because he was flying over either the North or the South Pole, and he ended up flying into the inner Earth.
That's when he flew over the North Pole, when he flew into the inner Earth.
Gotcha.
When he flew to Antarctica, he talked about the unexplored lands that he's seen. Antarctica under the ice is probably big as North America. Or bigger.
Yeah.
Right? And this is why when people see the ice shelf, they think it's a wall. Right? But it's not a wall, it's a shelf. If you see it from the top, you understand what I'm telling you. You can see all of the ancient structures starting to melt through the ice, thanks to the return of the sun cycle. The sun cycle is going to thaw Antarctica out. We got cryogenics and cryostasis from telepathic communication with people that was frozen under the ice to tell them how to thaw them out without killing them.
Oh boy.
Look, they try to tell us that they brought them from Africa and set them loose in Antarctica, and they thrived. And they called them the Bashinga tribe. They was already under the ice. They thawed them people out. Based on telepathic instructions, the Nazis was the first to have a base in direct contact with the people in the ice. Right? One of the things that they was experimenting on is genetics. We got to remember, Adolf Hitler sent Benito Mussolini into Egypt. What was they looking for? Akhenaten. Akhenaten was the last great pharaoh that changed the paradigm from polytheism to monotheism. But it was a paradigm shift that was earth-shaking for the times. So they wanted somebody with the same capabilities. So they started a genetic breeding program called Boys from Brazil. They even made a movie about it. So while they was down there, they say that they was cloning Adolf Hitler. They wasn't cloning Adolf Hitler. They was cloning Akhenaten. And they was cloning them in a batch of 50. And they was always experimenting on them. And they was dying in the experiments until they got down to about 10 of them. And then they gave us one of them. And they told us his name was Barack Obama. But his name is Barry Sotoro. Born in Kenya, the land of the jackal, Rosemary's Baby, Damien. Right? So when we was looking for the Antichrist, he rose right in our face and we was too blind to see it.
Listen, okay, so now you know went devil's advocate. Can you kind of tie that into how real the devil's advocate was? The symbolism in that movie and everything that was talked about?
Yeah, the devil's advocate with Al Pacino.
Yes. They broke down
so you got to remember that term devil's advocate is a lawyer in England. In England, a lawyer is called a devil's advocate. Devil mean enemy.
Yes.
Get the spookism out of it. The devil mean enemy.
Yep.
Right? So your personal devil is your personal enemy. You can have devils in your life that's angels in other people's. The gift and the curse. It cut both ways. So when the people begin to realize that everything is shifting, then we can get in alignment with the shift. But it all traces back to that same matriarchal energy.
Sure. Yeah, that's deep. That's real deep. So now, because a lot of this, what you're talking about now, that brings us up to what's happening in real time. Kind of like when we see the parallels and the symbolism in the show Supercell, right? You had a chance to check out Supercell?
The show Supercell is about the people with sickle cell anemia.
Right. Now,
so we are in the process of shifting in our genetic upgrade from a carbon-based entity to a crystal-based entity. When the defense mechanism for malaria that was dumped on them by Enlil, Enki genetically engineered them to defend themselves with the sickling of the cell from the malaria. Right? So they also have a program in their DNA that when the solar flash hit and the earth sent out the pulse and we go crystalline DNA and all of the frauds is shut off, then They gonna have special abilities, but I don't know what they gonna be. But they gonna have special abilities because of the sickle cell trait, like X-Men and shit. But I don't know what their ability gonna be, but they gonna have something extra.
Oh, they're gonna be powerful. We had shout out to Wu Now. She was talking about it on here a few episodes ago about like the different powers that we're gonna be seeing. And how does that tie into the solar flare? Because there's a lot going on with our sun right now with the solar flares and the holes in the sun.
The only time the genetics change in nature is when the solar flare sends out a radiation blast. The radiation blast causes the DNA to change. What we're looking at with the Schumann resonance spiking like it is, in the storms coming from the sun, they're talking to each other. And the Mother Earth is going to have to get rid of the parasites. So if we are in alignment with it, while this energy is doing this exchange, the DNA is crystalline, developing, and it has to upgrade with the solar flare. When the solar flare hit, the Earth, it's going to go to the core of the Earth, and the core of the Earth is going to send out a Schumann response based on the solar flare. And it's going to send off a strong and powerful frequency blast. And the ones that don't belong here, you're going to know it because they're going to be talking about sirens is playing in their head, and they're going to be dropping to their knees and bleeding out their ears and other orifices as well. All of those are things, parasitic things that don't belong, that's masquerading as human.
That's deep. That's real deep because I was talking about the symbolism in regards to a lot of the like the neutrinos and the protons, electrons, how all that stuff ties into the resonance and the frequencies that we're talking about in all the different atmospheres above the planet, right? So when it comes to that, it's almost like, to me, like it's like a cutoff switch where you kind of, say if you're using Wi-Fi and you walk too far away from your modem or your router or whatever, and then boom, the phone dead. Like you can't do nothing with it no more because you don't have access anymore. So is that what's going to happen with these beings and these parasites once these flares start to hit?
And they're gonna be bugging the fuck out. They're gonna be crashing. They're gonna be crashing head first into cars and shit.
So it's gonna be like a real malfunction, like a real system malfunction.
You gonna see them break down. When that burst go off, a lot of them just gonna drop dead where they at. But they can't resist the frequency. But some of them that's a little higher vibratory gonna have it worse. Because they can endure it longer.
Yeah, that's deep.
So they're the ones gonna be trying to fight it, and that's when they're gonna be start having vessels and shit popping in their eyes and ears and shit.
That's deep. You know what that? What this kind of reminds me of, right? Have you ever seen that movie, The Immortals?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that movie. That's a dope movie. There's a whole lot of symbolism. That reminds me of like the X-Men Apocalypse movie with the symbolism that's in that movie, The Immortals. So
they talking about the Orisha.
There you go.
The Orisha was the original Immortals of the Earth. They was also represented as the Titans. The Titans was the Orisha. This is why they don't want us using voodoo magic, because it relies on different aspects of understanding of the Orisha. The hoodoo. That was our defense. So they villainized it so that we wouldn't go to where our greatest power lie in order to fight their conjure magic back. So you know what I decided to do? Fight their ass with voodoo.
Yes, sir.
And they've been working. Ain't failed me yet. Black girl magic on every damn thing I do.
All day, every day. Yes, sir. Yeah, man. Yeah, nah, this is, that's real.
You know what they traditionally call African spirituality is actually tribal spirituality. And it's the same thing expressed all over the world among the tribes naturally in a natural habitat before colonizers come and Christianize and Mohammedize them and institutionalize them to a foreign culture. Right? So the culture gonna always be there. And if we understand what we lost, we can go study Africa to figure some of it out. We can go study Asia to figure some of it out. Studying the indigenous cultures, studying Australian indigenous cultures, Maori indigenous cultures, Hawaiian indigenous cultures. All of the cultures that was there before the colonizers is a central theme that tells you who the rightful heirs is to take care of the local land. You're exactly where you're supposed to be on your land. Because in this life, that's where your birthright dropped you. Your right of birth, the land you landed on. But they told you you landed in the sea. Admiralty jurisdiction.
That's deep. Oof, that's real deep. Man, oh man. So now in the like where we're going. So now to go back to Immortals in that movie, and this is something that I love, and I'm pretty sure let me ask you this before I ask you this question. I'm pretty sure you probably read it, but have you ever read the book what's the name of it? It's about the young boy who was he was like in the desert, and his journey was to find his destiny. I cannot think of the name of the book. It was a damn good book, man. It's a self-help book and it's a personal development book, but it was about a story about a boy. I can't think of the name of it, but it reminds me of Immortals. And I'll remember, I'll get the name of that book. But anyways, he always had the guidance and the assistance of like an elder or like a wise man, you know what I'm saying? Kind of like the astrological aspects of the Jesus story with the baby in the manger type thing, where the stars, the wise men were always watching over him. So in Immortals, what would that character symbolize, or who would that character symbolize? The elder, the old man that was watching over Theseus throughout the whole entire movie, when he was just like an old bummy, old hag type character, but he actually was a god that was watching over Theseus to make sure that, you know what I'm saying, he was able to kind of tap into, almost like going from Simba into Mufasa, the Osar and drama.
So the blueprint of the holy drama is the math that tells the rightful heir how to properly ascend the throne and who currently is displacing him from his royal seat. This is the mythology of Set versus Osiris. The brothers fight, and Set designs a coffin for Osiris and puts it in and locks him in it and kill him. So then he scared he's going to resurrect, so he go chop him up into pieces and spread him along the Nile. So the Easter egg hunt, because the Ishtar, Isis, had the babies help her find the remains of Osiris, and they used the Heka magic that they learned from Tahuti. And so once she brings Osiris pieces together, his phallus is missing. So she decides to absorb his essence, his DNA code, which is already in her, and use it to spontaneously create a son, right? So she's using the blueprint of Osiris, the father, in order to generate a carbon copy of the father in Horus, the son, who's going to avenge his father from his uncle Set and retake the throne, right? It's a math problem, but you won't never see it as a conceptual physics problem until you become turned on as the rightful heir to unravel how to reascend to the throne.
That's deep. Yeah, man, that's deep. That's real deep. And you know, it also triggers something in me too, to think about the mothers and how, the symbolism that we see is being shown right before our very eyes at all times. So now if you remember in the movie Immortals, there was a part where Theseus had to go into like this monastery or like this monk, type place where they was hiding out. And the only way for him to be able to access the true, Ashe, or the true power, he had to get with the females, the feminine energy. So to me, that would be symbolism to the female natures, but also of like the Aj. To me, that would be like the symbolism of the Iyami or the Aj from
So
E5,
you
correct?
remember earlier when I told you I got 7 godmothers named Mary,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they are the ones that anoints the sun. If you look on the hieroglyphic wall, you will see a procession of women, and they'll have a vase in their hand, and the one that's standing before the child will be pouring the vase across his head. She's anointing him. That's what anointing means. And once he's anointed by the 7 sisters, that's when they turn on what's called the Pleiadian light, which is the ability to access your pineal gland and turns on your third eye. So they are calling on the forces of the ancestors to speak through this child. And the ancestors has to study the problem. So the child has to go through a life where the problem is constantly part of his reality until he can figure out the solution to deliver to the people in order to free them from the tyranny of oppression.
Yeah. That's deep. That's real deep. I love it. Oh,
That's the
man.
purpose of the Redeemer, though.
Yeah.
The Redeemer's job is to redeem the lost sheep, right? In order for them to receive their due inheritance. Right? So you go back to the book of Ruth. Ruth decided to be patient and wait for the Redeemer to come before she would leave. And before she would leave her mother-in-law, who she was taking care of, who she didn't have to, who told her, go on about your business like Orpha. Big fat funky Oprah. Who turned your back on your sisters in order to defect from the Delta, the Mississippi Delta, your roots.
That's deep. And shout out to Akelia Wright. She sent me, that was The Alchemist. That's the book I was trying. I can't remember. I was trying to look at it in my phone to find it in my library. But yeah, The Alchemist. So that kind of what we're talking about kind of reminds me of The Alchemist. Have you read that book?
I haven't read that one.
Oh, it's a good read. You'll like that one. It's a dope book. Real dope book. But okay, so now when it comes to where we are now, all right. When we talk about the mothers, and clearly everybody knows this is a mother's house, a matriarchal house. Isis, Aset, when you see her in the hieroglyphs and the pyramids, a lot of times you'll see her with her arms extended and you see the wings, like, or even if she's like has them, down by her side, you see the wings. Can you kind of share what the wings symbolize in regards to this thing we call flight? In regards to, and also how that kind of connects to the sun when you talk about the sun.
First thing you got to realize is the reason she got feathers on is because that's Mesoamerican culture. What we call Olmec, Inca, Aztec, old Mississippians. It's Mesoamerican culture. It's the same thing that you see when you see the tribes dressing up with the feathers on, with the wings. They're imitating the ceremonial dress of Tahuti. This Tahuti land over here, right? So as the land of Tahuti, all of the tribes call him the Great Father. This is the Great Osirian. But in Africa, they refer to the Great Osirian as Enki. So you got two distinct, different patriarchal lines influencing 2 different continents. That's the first thing you got to understand about seeing her with her wings spread. And his symbolism is the full aura, right? Because when the aura is fully illuminated and you can see the aura, sometimes when people stretch their arms out like that, it gives the appearance that they have wings made of light. So the ancestors have to remind you of that. So they create what's called archetype artistic expression. So they put the wings on the pottery so that you will remember that spiritually you have wings. Right now, the technological wing disc, right, is the symbol for the fleet of the sky. The fleet of the sky was under the command of Enlil, which translates into English as Lord of the Sky or Lord of the Rumbling Voice. Right? So when we're looking at the symbols, not until we know the origin of the symbol and what it means in its origin will we know the truth for the matter of what they concealing from us in our face, behind our back. Using symbols to talk above our concept or understanding.
Yeah, that's deep. That's real deep. Not because, yeah. Oh man. Okay. So let me ask you this, because this has been a hot topic and a hot debate on the channel since our first interview. Where did human life begin from your perspective? Because some people have seen disagreements. Some people saying America, we was here first. Some people saying Africa, we was there first. Can you kind of break down from your research and your studies which one you feel like was the origin or birthplace of humanity?
So the outer Africa theory is predicated on Lucy being the oldest recovered hominid, bipedal hominid, ever discovered at 3.5 million years old. The problem with that is the species of hominid that Lucy was is called proconsul. Proconsul was not a human. It was a chimpanzee. So the out of Africa theory ties in and was influenced by the philosophy of Charles Darwin's evolutionary theory that has never been proven. It's debatable. That's why it's still a theory. But the reality of it is all humans is made of the carbon base of corn. Scientists already have went through this research. The only place that you find corn originally was the Americas. Corn was exported to the world from America, and that's why the Corn Festival was one of the most sacred festivals we had that drew tribes all the way to what we call today the Aztec temples from both North and South America for the Great Corn Festival. This is why you have these so many different types of corn, but you only know about the Oshun corn, the yellow corn. But the corn is the carbon that made up the human. And if you look at it, you got so many different colors of corn, right? So the breeding or the laboratories that have all of the genetic profiles in phenotype is in Teotihuacan, in the temples, on the walls. So the human was created quintessentially in the Americas and exported to the rest of the world. Now you could say we was all at Pangea at the time, right? Because when they say something is pagan, they say it's Pangean. That means it go back to the earliest days of Atlantean civilization.
That's deep. That's real deep. That's real deep.
So remember, Tartaria is Tartarus, and Tartarus is the land that's under the ice in Antarctica.
That's deep.
Atlantis was the Americas as the capital of Atlantis with the original temple of Isis. The waters used to, in the night sky under the Lilith moon before they parked Luna out here, used to shine and glisten in the night sky. And it used to look like she was surrounded by glistening, flowing rivers of metal because of the fluorescent nature of the black moon. It's like having a black light in the club.
Ooh, that's deep. Listen, let me jump in real quick because we moving now, family. Y'all buckle up, Buttercup, but we moving now. So how does that relate to the aurora borealis and how that glistens, at the poles?
So that comes from a refraction of light as it radiates off the gases. Or you ever be driving down the street and you see that wave of heat coming up?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's like that, but it's in the atmosphere. And it's composed of gases. The same way that wave is composed of gases being released from the earth. And the refraction of the light going through the gases gives us the luminosity that gives us that effect of the aurora borealis, the northern lights or the southern lights. Now, when the solar flares get intense, the ends of the aurora borealis moves further south from the North Pole, and the southern lights move further north from the South Pole. It's showing you the impact of the solar energy radiation that's coming in, because it's making the heat up faster, that's covering more spectrum of light across a broader surface area.
Ooh, that's deep. That's real deep. Now, I remember last week when you was on, you had a dope emblem. I was looking at it in the replay. I couldn't really see it while we was on the live, but I saw it in the replay, and I think I got an idea of what that means or is symbolic to. But before we go into that, can you kind of share
this one?
Yeah, nope. Well, let me see. Can you move it a little bit more to your right? But okay, yeah, it was that one. I didn't see the full. See, I didn't see the headdress. All I saw was the face. Can you kind of share what that symbol, what that means, and what that's symbolic for?
That's a full feathered, full bonnet war chief. Chief Pontiac is a war chief. Ottawa. I'm an old Mississippian with the oldest rank, so by my old ass being on the territory of Ottawa and having the competent capability to arrange military strategy and tactics behind the scenes, then I inherit the responsibility to recover the Chief Pontiac aspect of the war by telling all the tribes what's going on the land.
Yes, that's deep. And it reminds me of two things. It reminds me of some of the masks that was worn in the movie Immortals, but it also reminds me of, I want to say it was either the Mayas or the Aztecs gods. One of them. I can't remember which one it was. I was just looking at something earlier, doing a little research, but I saw that face looked very similar to one of their. I don't know if he was a deity or what his role was, but it looks very similar to someone who was significant in one of those two cultures. I can't remember which one. Now, with Tiahuashan, and that's the mountain of the moon, correct? Or is it the mountain of the sun?
I'm not for sure. I don't want to say for sure.
It's one or the other. It's either the mountains. It's either attributed to the sun or the moon. I can't remember. But every time I look at it, it definitely looks like, especially the large one, the big one. It looks like that would be a landing pad for some very significant crafts at the very top of it.
They don't need no landing pad. That's one of the most 3D earth-minded things you could think, that they need a landing pad. They can use stilts and land damn near anywhere. And they can launch a landing pad from the bottom of their ship that will land on the ground, but it'll make them hover above the disc. They don't need no damn landing pad. That's some 3D shit. They can go through portals. They can land on water and don't sink. Or they can land on the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah. That's deep.
Right? They can stay under the water longer than we can in our submarines.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they know how to extract the oxygen out of the water using the metal of the ship as a breathing apparatus.
Yep. We really about to go, folks. So nah, for real though. We really about to go. Because now I got video footage of 2 crafts, and I have pictures of maybe 3 or 4 that I caught personally. Now I can't say how many I've seen. I've seen so many I can't even say, but I actually have receipts for 2 that I've seen, and I have pictures of maybe up to about 5 that I've actually caught on camera. But I've seen a lot of different types of crafts, and I've actually filmed a couple that I'll share. I might embed it into this when I do the upload with this. But I do know that there are certain types of crafts that are attributed to certain types of beings, and this is going to bring me into where I wanted to go, kind of ask some questions that the tribe had too. I'm gonna get into a little bit about these crafts. So from my research and from what I've seen in my own life with my own eyes and some of my cameras, there are 2 different distinct types of crafts, right? So you'll have some crafts that come in the circular, the traditional, which you'll see probably like on, Ancient Aliens and different other types of, or even like the craft that they had in Black Panther, right? You'll see certain crafts that are more in like a circular manner, kind of like the Ashe logo, right? Like you'll see a disc type craft. You'll have those types of crafts, and you also have the cigar shaped crafts, and then you have like the shams, which would look kind of similar to a crown, and you have the scout ships. There's a lot of different types of ships that come in and out of our planet and travel throughout this space in the universe or the solar system, right? But then you also have other types of crafts that are primarily a different type of craft that have shining lights and rotating lights of amber and jasmine and all these different things. I was just sharing with them the 2 different types of crafts because I'm trying to break down the distinction between who would be Inky's fleet of crafts and who would be Enlil's fleet of craft. Kind of like the dirty Moors, the black mobility versus, the ones who are the righteous Moors.
Inky is the commander of the Nibiru fleet now. And he is the next in line to hold Anu's seat. Anu is going to be promoted to the position of chairman of the Galactic Council. So Enlil is exiled. So the only thing left is to finish the process. What happens spiritually trickles down physically. When I talk about Inky and Enlil, I'm really just talking about frequencies of energy that deals with understanding how structure work in conflict. So they become tools of learning, but when you give them a noun, person, place, or thing, people tend to grasp the concept that's attached to it easier. So I read it as energy, but other people read it as a novel.
Got you. And that makes sense because shout out to Arisha Stone. Had a dope conversation with him the other day too, man. We was talking about this today, actually, off air. But we were talking about how the significance of knowing, like, about what's a good being or a good person, a good energy and entity versus what's a bad. Because I think a lot of times, especially now, a lot of us, especially us, because we've been through so much pain and trauma, with racism and the
yeah, we lost trust in each other more than we did in other people.
There you go. And that's where I wanted to tap into about how the significance of energy and frequency is, because it's not a skin thing now. Not at this point. It's way beyond that. Now it is strictly, primarily a energetic frequency thing, especially when you talk about mama getting rid of the parasites and having her cycle and flushing all that foolishness out of here. So with that, how does that correlate to where we are in regards to how we're living our experience, like in regards to like the karmic, attributes that come back and forth with what we do in regards to karma, our habits, whether we drinking and smoking and fucking all the time and not, working on elevating our frequency. How does that tie into?
Think about this. If you got anything you do, you're supposed to do. If you God, somebody can't tell you God and put restrictions on your God expression. Just because a person may have a vice, don't make him any less of a God. And just because a person is homeless, sleeping on Skid Row or under the subway, that don't make them any less God. They just pauper gods. And the pauper guys is the one that no longer want to play in the shenanigans of the charade because they see through the cracks in the game and they know what's going on, but everybody think they crazy. So rather than play the game and try to change everybody's mind, they just refuse to participate. And we call them homeless.
Crystal City and some of the crafts and things that we're talking about to kind of give a visual. But
the Crystal City is called a jumper ship. It's a royal jumper ship. Right? It fit inside of another bigger craft called a mothership. The Crystal City is big, but it's just a jumper ship. And it's all bedazzled because it was made for the royal family of Nibiru. And when it land, it's going to land on Emerald Lake. I think it's in Colorado or Montana. That's where it's going. That's where it's scheduled landing at. The county that's shaped like a Liberty Bell.
Yeah, that's deep. That's real.
Remember,
deep.
Dorothy was looking for Emerald City. But she wasn't looking for Emerald City. She was looking for a Crystal City. She just didn't know that it sits on the Emerald Lake. And if you follow the yellow brick road, follow the gold.
That's deep because I was able to get one. Let me make sure it's the right one. I was able to get one converted in time. So now you said, and I'm glad you said, what you said, the Emerald Lake, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm gonna share a diagram of Nibiru, so we can kind of dive in a little deeper tonight, right? So now when we talk about Nibiru has the solar panels, it has crystal, and it has a lot of stones around it. Can you share the significance, especially because the emerald stone is one of the stones? Does that have anything to do with why it has to land or will land on that Emerald Lake or that lake?
This right here is a mothership. This is a mothership. This is a mothership. This deploys from Nibiru. Nibiru is bigger than the sun. It's Rilo 7, Planet X. It's our second sun in our binary sun system that comes to every 36,000 years.
Now, do you? Because me personally, I feel like one way, but let me see if your realm of thought is the same as mine. So is that symbolic or symbolism into regards to why Andre 3000 is called why he says Andre 3000?
I think he said that he was 1,000 years ahead of everybody else musically. So we was in 2000, he was Andre in 3000. This right here is the jumper ship, the Crystal City.
That's what I
see. It's dome shape. You see those pads under the bottom of it? That's what they land on.
Yes, sir.
Right. The star on the top is the same as the flag, but the flag, you can't fly no flag in outer space. That motherfucker, it won't last long.
Look, they ain't gonna last long on the planet if the right speed winds come through this thing.
Yeah. So in outer space, it'll freeze and get brittle and crumble into dust.
Yes, sir.
Because remember how cold it is, and it's beyond absolute zero. So as soon as that sucker fly, it's gonna freeze. And then by you flying the ship, the frozen flag gonna crumble to dust, so they can't use flags.
Mm.
And also serves as an energy converter from the atmospheric pressure around it.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. I told y'all we was going in tonight, family. We definitely going. Okay, let me ask you this, because according to my research, right, how do crop circles and the Nazca lines align with everything that we're talking about now when we're talking about these higher, advanced beings from different star systems?
The real crop circles are extraterrestrial communication using symbols.
Yep.
But then you have the charlatans that go over there with the log and pretend they making a crop circle.
Mm-hmm.
That was to discredit the original crop circles. Crop circles are not new. Before we had technology, we had crop circles.
Mm-hmm.
They just started reporting on them in the 90s?
It wasn't that long ago. Not long ago at all.
Yeah, but when you look in ancient texts, you see the symbols that the crop circles have in them, and they tell you what they mean. It's actually an ancient language that you can translate.
Yep.
But the oddity is nobody ever see a ship in the area.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But the stalks are not broke like something sat down on them or crushed them. They still growing and functioning like normal.
Yep.
Right? So that's what you call fourth dimensional energy.
Mm-hmm.
But it's electromagnetic in nature.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's using the magnetism of the earth as it spins in the circle to create the crop circle.
Mm. Yeah. That's deep. That's real deep. Now, because I'm a nerd, so I've been studying this stuff for a long time, and so I've seen how now they're putting a lot of this stuff in these documentaries or these series like Ancient Aliens and all that. But honestly, I feel like that's really the same thing they did like when they raided the Library of Alexandria. I feel like they took a lot of the work that they got from the Dr. Blairs and the Dr. Yorks of the world, you know what I'm saying, the Machwas, the Cradle Machwas of the world, and they kind of like putting it out from their perspective to where they can monetize it. Because remember, they were killing our master teachers for teaching us this stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like back in the day. So it's like now all of a sudden, it kind of reminded me of weed. It's like you couldn't figure out how to control it back when you first got exposed to it. But now that you figured out a way to monetize it, now you want to put it out. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I feel like that's what we're seeing with the information now too.
Well, the Library of Alexandria, most of the scrolls that was there are in the Vatican Library. Right? Some of the priests fled and took some to the University of Timbuktu. They took some of the scrolls to India and to the Tibetan mountains, but the largest number of them was carried through underground tunnels during the fire to Vatican City. They all under the all that ancient knowledge is still available if the Vatican ever release it, but they don't want to release it because it blows a lot of the false god narrative philosophy out of the water.
Yeah, that's deep, and I'm trying to keep up with the comments. Shout out to the tribe that's going ham in the comments. It's hard for me to keep up with everybody, but I saw one that kind of stuck out because it kind of, to me, goes exactly to what here it go right here, what you were just saying. So, Snamaya Yasriel said that they heard that Nibiru was a rogue ship via AI the other day. Not sure they believe the rogue aspect.
It was declared a rogue ship when Enlil attacked the Earth. When Enlil attacked the Earth, Enki sent his son Marduk, not to be confused with Enlil's son Murdoch. He sent his son to secure Nibiru in order to protect Anu's throne. And so when the message came back that the name of Nibiru was changed to Marduk, it was classified as a rogue planet already. But it was secured by Enki's line in order to fight this war.
That's deep. That's real deep. And shout out to Cat's Corner. So Cat's Corner said they had a dream that the mothership was here back in 2020. That's deep because
They been here that long.
but remember me and you was talking the other day. I was telling you about my experience too. I had one back in, I want to say mine was probably like in the 20, I say between '09 and '11 when I had a dream similar. Like, I mean, it was dope. I actually seen a documentary where this lady was a contactee, and she had the real dream that I had, that was the most vivid dream I ever had. She had it unfold within her real life third dimensional reality, and she was breaking it down, and they showed a depiction of it. But I had one very similar that I was sharing with you, but mine was a dream. But I remember it was motherships flying through, and I'm talking about they were like cities, and they had the whole entourage, the whole convoy was here. They had the fleets, they had the scout ships, that like the four winds, like they were doing something. They came and shut everything down. I'll never forget that dream because it was so real.
If in 1957, if a UFO landed on the White House lawn, and Dr. Strangers wrote a book called Stranger in the Pentagon talking about it, and around that same time, Dwight D. Eisenhower come out and warn about the military industrial complex, right? And the information that was being relayed from Valley and Thor to Eisenhower was that the people they just contracted with was some nefarious beings that they had tied themselves up in the contract through deception. So the president come out and give us a full-fledged warning about the power of the military industrial complex right after he had just signed the agreement to construct the military industrial complex. Today, we don't call it military industrial complex. We call it the Pentagon. And we don't know what happened in the Pentagon because most of it is top secret security clearance information. And that means it's above all of our pay grades until they declassify it. And they didn't declassify it enough to tell us that they on some real bullshit.
You can say that again, but guess what? They ain't declassified enough for me because I know exactly who you're talking about, what you're talking about, and why you're talking about it. We're talking about Valiant Thor, who was a Venusian, who was actually living in the Pentagon during that time in which you're talking about. He came here with his fleet. I believe it was three of them. It was him, and it was another Venusian dude, and it was a white
A
lady.
lady.
I can't remember her name. I can't remember their names, but I know exactly what you're talking about. And I got the pictures and the receipts, and I probably throw them up in the upload. But yeah, that's deep, and that's where a lot of this comes into play of what we're dealing with now. Is that correct?
Yes. So when they warned us about that, the close of the age, in order for the age of Pisces to close, all contracts have to be closed. So they could only give them a contract that extends until the close of the age, which is determined by, this cycle is determined by the Mayan calendar, right? The Mayan calendar is a sub calendar to what we call the Yuga calendars of India. The Mayan calendar was to clock this cycle until its conclusion in 2012, and then we was supposed to begin cleaning up all of our earthly bullshit in order for the children that's coming in as indigo children, star children, crystal children to come in, and they supposed to take us to a whole nother level of civilization. But all of the grown folks want the spotlight, and they want to suppress the child and abuse the child in order to keep the future from being prosperous and bountiful. Keep oppressing the children, you keep oppressing the future. So we have to first liberate the children. This is why everywhere you look, somebody fighting to end human trafficking. The only thing that's disturbing to me is it ain't enough people that's in high places being exposed for their involvement in the human trafficking yet. And that shit's starting to piss me off.
Yeah, that's facts, and that's one of the things. That's one of my biggest pet peeves that really make me want to turn up and muck some muck some people up is messing with children and elderly and women and people who are handicapped like that don't nothing burn my brown is more than that. They want to turn up and muck some folks up. But yeah, I feel like that's going to be taking its place in divine time to where the mothers are here and they doing what they do. So shout out to the Iyami, the IJ, the Netchers, all the feminine forces are all, especially the IJ and the Iyami are very powerful protectors of children. So all that foolishness it is what it is. I feel bad for them, but it is what it is. But we're gonna definitely do something about it. Now, man, we're going real deep. Okay, so when we talk about the ancient civilizations, another comment that I've seen that I wanted to kind of get your perspective on, it was from the last one we did, was in regards to the eldest civilizations, advanced civilizations. So with you, would it be the Anunnaki, the Sumerians, or was it some civilizations that even predate both of them?
Atlantis is older than all that shit. When the Anunnaki came, we was already in Atlantis. They the ones broke the Atlantean matriarchy up. When Enlil attacked the earth, it was assault on the divine feminine, an attempt to overthrow the great mother from her throne. They just said, though she had some crazy ass boys like me that don't play that shit. I'm only pissed off they told me we had to educate ourselves above the condition we can't fuck nobody up.
Listen, that reminds me of my life, man, because I got a lot of different voices that be going ham inside this little head of mine, man. And it's like some of them they about that action what you talking about, but then there's other ones that
my generation, the fuck around and find out generation. we not singing we shall overcome. We singing get the fuck out my way.
Yes, sir, or I will smash your face in. Like real talk, and that's real. And won't
that's why they dropped that song. Get out the way, bitch. Move.
Listen, I saw this clip. I don't know if you saw it, but when I saw it, I loved it because I was like, boy, if he ain't say something there. But shout out to LL. I saw a clip with him like a year or two ago, and he was on, I don't know if it was a podcast, radio interview, and they were talking about, shout out to Renetta, the goddess, thank you, we appreciate you. He was saying how it's like, I'm not a nice guy, but I'm a good guy. You know what I'm saying? And what he said, he was like, because, as a nice guy, if you seen a dude, you know what I'm saying, running across the street to try to snatch an old lady purse, you know what I'm saying, he just watches that dude snatch her purse and run off, that's a nice guy. He said, a good guy, if I see that guy, I'm going to snatch him up and I'm going to cave his face in and I'm going to give it back to the He's like, that's a good guy. He said, so I'm not a nice guy, but I'm a good guy. So look, I'm working towards being a good guy because I don't think I'll ever be a nice guy.
Nice means naive, easy to confuse.
That part.
I ain't trying to be nice. I tell people be kind, be courteous, respect everybody, but somebody disrespects you, send them to the cemetery. Quote Malcolm X, forevermore.
Yeah, and shout out to the Honorable El Haj Malik El Shabazz, man. We got a big show coming up on the 19th, family. I'll be sharing that real soon once we get all the details and the flyers and everything laid out. But we got a big one coming on 19th in honor of the Honorable El Haj. But yeah, that's real. That's real. That's real talk. Yes, sir. Real talk. Now, when you talk about the inner earth, right? Which ones? Because I mentioned, I think me and Orisha Stone was talking about either Shambhala or Agartha. I can't remember which one, but anyways, which one predates? Is it the civilizations that are attributed to the inner earth, which would be Shambhala, Tartaria, Agartha, or Lemuria, or Tatara, Agartha, and Shambhala, or the Atlan, Lemuria, like civilizations? Which one of those are older and predate, or how do they kind of tie into each other?
They was the same civilization at one point. We used to communicate. We used to communicate with the people inside the earth. We talking about Shambhala and Agartha. Okay. Those people cut contact because the people on the surface was fighting a war against some people from the sky. So to secure Earth, they secured the inside Their technology is advanced. Some of the UFOs you think coming from outer space is coming from inner Earth.
That's facts.
They are also part of the talks between the galactic councils on the resolution of the conflict on the surface of the Earth. Because they part of the Earth families, they say is just as valid as anybody else's, because the fate of the Earth affects them as well as it affected people on the surface.
Yep. That's facts. And I've been saying that for a long time. That's
The
why
Pleiadian light lock trapped us all in this thing together. That's why people keep saying it's a dome. But it's a radiation barrier called the Van Allen belt. All you gotta do is a little research and you'll understand what's taking place. The Van Allen belt has us locked in a perpetual time loop called an infinity loop. It was done through science and conjure magic. The reason the Pleiadians put the light lock around the Earth was to trap the ones that was good and bad together to fight it out on the ground. This is why they always tell you that the devil came to Earth. What was Earth before the devil came? It was heaven for the people who from Earth. So when the devil came, he interrupted our harmonious living and brought us some form of chaos. Right? So they say that Humbaba stole the scrolls of destiny. The scrolls of destiny is the writing of the 26,000 year cycle. If you go back to your Nation of Islam teachings, the history is written in advance, and then we live it out in reverse. That's why when you breaking out of the infinity loops, everything you seen coming in, you're gonna see it going out, but it's upside down and backwards in the mirror. So you might not recognize it until you got caught back in the loop. Sometimes you got to be in the loop several times. They call this, you don't learn your lesson the first time.
Yeah.
Right? You can't see your way out of the cycle that have you trapped in the loop. And that's why when your Sako Ma, if you realize what it is, your monkey mind, you can learn how to monkey flip your mind to see all deception.
Yeah, that's deep, man. Shout out to Ultra Instinct. Look, I almost titled this podcast episode after Apocalypse, man. So that's dope that he put that in there, or he or she. I'm not sure if it's male or female, but shout out to them, man, because I almost named that this show something along the lines of Apocalypse, and Apocalypse would be a heavy topic on our last conversation. But that's deep, man. That's real deep. That's real deep. Now, does that have something to do with why they say, like in the Akashic records, a lot of people, we have multiple lifetimes and we come in and out of, lifetimes, and, to kind of get everything right before we can kind of transform into a full-blown ancestor or ascended being?
Listen, the Akashic records, think about this. We are in a holographic reality. Nothing escapes the hologram. Not even a thought. So in a holographic reality, everything that ever was still is, and everything to be is still here. It's already here. So all you doing is moving through the hologram, and you standing on the remnants of prior holographic experiences. When you erase a hard drive, you still have data on the hard drive. When Earth shifts, Earth still have data that's evidence of the shift from one cycle to the next. From the giants who became petrified mountains, to the giant trees that was cut down to kill our powers, that they tell about in parody and movie form, right? All of our temples of ancient eras from different eras on different locations around the world, all this stuff is within the hologram, and those remnants is the leftovers that couldn't be erased from the memory of the collective. It's still there. Ain't no secrets anymore because all of the secrets is out in the open. And to expose the reality of the earthborn tribes of the Americas as the firstborn tribes of the earth, and having first right to the earth rights to the mothers, grandfathered in off the oral tradition of the tribal structure to always restore Big Mama back to her throne at the close of the age. So we follow the oral tradition and disregard their paper chain that had us in a prison, both paper prisons and metal prisons, through their paperwork. We didn't need prisons before they came. We didn't have prisons before they came. We solved the problem that caused the human to be broken in the first place. Therefore, you don't have nothing called crime. Everybody ate, so nobody didn't have to steal to eat. Anybody would give you what they had, so you didn't have to steal nobody else's possession because they didn't. Hey, you can have that shit. That shit not more important to me than you are. Then you have the others who came and they don't feel like we feel, and they created a dissension. They planted that seed throughout all of the groups of the people of the land that lived harmoniously on the land before they came, as it is already documented by the ancestors that left stories from before 1492. We knew how to get along. We knew how to solve the problem one way or another, but we not resting with problems lingering in the air that affect the people. And if it affect one of us negatively, it affect all of us negatively. Under the matriarchy, when the women get their birthright back to the earth rights and the matriarchy rise as the prevailing and ruling government, we all can breathe again. And that even changes the complexity of the oxygen. Some of these people that's around us breathing next to us, they don't deserve the right to have oxygen.
Facts.
They waste the oxygen. And we think, we still love them. But they're a total waste of breath.
Facts.
And then you got some of them that every breath is worth gold to have them breathing here.
Facts.
And then you got a spectrum between the two because we live in the land of polarities. The holograph, you have to understand the polarities. In order to know the difference, you have to understand how to do a comparative analysis. Dr. Neely Fuller told me, if you tell me this is a good guy and that's a bad guy, show me a bad guy and then explain to me the difference in the two. Comparative analysis. Comparative analysis allows the God mind to break free from the 3D socialized domesticated mind. You setting your taco mouth free, your monkey mind free.
Facts. Yeah. Shout out to the ancestor. He joined the realm of the ancestors not too long ago. Neely Fuller. This is one of his dopest piece of works that I've read. Is the compensatory counter-racist code, man. This is a principle. Like, this book is definitely something that every household should have in it because it breaks down the 9 areas in which that whole system was constructed on and what it uses to try to, keep the masses under, that sleep spell, and
I was fortunate enough to get to talk to him before he passed too.
Wow, for real? That's what's up.
I talked to him a couple years ago because I wanted to make sure I understood the writing of the book and how to use it. When he got done explaining it to me, and then I said, this is the counter-offensive to the oppressive white supremacist mentality. But it's not a guide to oppress pale-faced people. that we call white.
Mm-hmm.
It's how to break yourself free mentally and spiritually from the shackles of the tyranny we was under. If you use a side-by-side comparative analysis, everything they said they was going to do to control us in the protocols of the learned elders of Zion is everything he's giving you the defense structure to in his United Compensatory Code.
Yes, sir. That's a whole nother call. Look. Somebody in the chat, I gotta find it, but shout out to the chat, the tribe member who dropped the comment about putting together courses for people who are new to this. That's something that we definitely had to chop it up about, because I was just talking to Heru today, Professor Kaba's son, about something similar to that, because there's so much information that we have access to that a lot of people have never heard of, haven't been exposed to, or that just simply want to learn and get to the next level with. So I want to try to figure out different ways that we can kind of put that together, for the tribe and for the family, man, because it's real. And a lot of people are waking up at an alarming rate. So we need more healers. We need more teachers. We need more, people to hold it down. So it's like, we got to get the information, and the elevation out there to as many people as possible. So I'm hopefully find that comment and bring it to the forefront. And then shout out to Cola for the, matter of fact, this comment right here says it all. It says that the people are hungry, and feed us. The sage is healing. I am the street. Can we get a council in a regular meeting, or where is it? That's one. I think that might have been one of the comments I was talking about. But
So,
you're getting to hear that, family. Yep, my bad. I mean, you got it.
Yeah. So I'm out here on social media. I'm just giving away free game. But when I get done with this internship on my social media campaign, and I get to divorce myself finally from social media, because it's the most naggingest, sufferingest wife a motherfucker could ever ask for.
Listen. I love y'all, man. We love the people, because I promise.
But when I get done, I'll be instituting programs, leadership program, doula training, which also includes training herbalists and natural healers and naturopaths, right? And business training and the rites of passage for the boys and girls. Because the thing is they teaching us how to be somebody else's servant. They're not teaching us how to take our destiny in our own hands. They're not teaching us about the principle of being autonomous, of being self-determinate, right? I never heard the word self-determination the whole time I went to school.
Because school is not created for us to even think that thought of self-determination, because the school system.
I never one time heard the word autonomous in the whole time I went to school in the educational system.
And you won't.
I learned them words studying with Nation of Islam brothers. Sovereign. Sovereignty. I used to have to dissect. My first teacher, Everett X, he was from the Nation. Everett X told me, he say, you need to know the words that people saying, what they actually mean, because the communication breakdown come with most of us don't know the definition of certain words, and we use them freely, and we'll even change the context of the word, so we didn't even see the shift. And if you don't know the history of the word, the etymology, basic conversation can become frustratingly confusing to the point where you erupt in a rage just from trying to communicate.
That's powerful, because now when you say that, and I love that you said that, when you say that's extremely powerful, because now we're going to go to Kemet, and I want to say, if I'm not mistaken, one image in Kemet, let's just say, for example, the right? One image in Kemet can be translated to mean, I think, was it like 1,000 like words or messages or something like that in regards to what symbolism and imagery means to our psyche. You know, when we talk about the
So,
mental.
right. So every symbol has an effect on the subconscious mind. Because you don't remember your past lives, you don't know why the symbol is affecting you like that. And therefore, you can't use the energy that the symbol is causing you to produce because you don't understand what's taking place between you and the symbol. This is how they talk over our head using symbolism, because the symbolism that you don't understand confuses you to the reality that you in. And so once you learn the language of symbols, they can't get nothing past you because you can read a family crest, you can read the hieroglyphics, you can read all of the things, they sigils and codes that they use as emblems and monikers. All that stuff matter. When you driving down the street and you seeing all of those signs for restaurants, those are all masonically coded. And I don't give a damn whose sign it is, because the sign maker was one of the guilds, and they became proficient in putting the conjure in the sign without even the owner and designer of the sign knowing it's in there.
That's deep. That's real deep. Because now you're talking about like, okay, so when you say that, and this, I feel like it's relevant to what we're talking about, especially when we talk about encoding and encrypting messages. So what is that? How does that kind of correlate to what we see on the dollar bill? When you see that pyramid with the triangle with the eye, what does that have to do with any of this?
Well, those symbols tell you who the contract was between. Right? If you look on a dollar bill, $20 bill, $5 bill, right? You're going to see on one side of the bill, it's going to be Treasurer of the United States. And on the other side, it's going to be Secretary of the Treasury. Now, if you know banking, the rank is the same, but the system is different. So this is your private bank getting the permission from the public bank to print the money on behalf of the public bank, as if the public bank is backing the money, but the immunity is on the private bank. The private bank can't be prosecuted because it's not a legal fiction, right? So when you're looking at those symbols, you seeing that it was a contract between two different groups.
Now, let me ask you. Oh, go ahead.
So the eagle is supposed to be an eagle, but it's actually the symbol for the Scottish Rite Freemasonic Lodge, right? And the pyramid is the symbol for the temple priesthoods of the Kemetic priesthood.
Yes, sir.
But this is all done in our face, behind our back. Those are secret symbols.
I.e. secret societies, right?
Yeah. But the society ain't secret.
Right.
The only secret is that the stuff that they teach is yours and you don't know it yet.
That part. Oh, man. So let me ask
the
you.
The elder wrote a book that say, they stole it, you must return it.
George G.M. James, Stolen Legacy.
Who the hell was he talking to? Because I took it personally.
I thought he was talking to the Greeks. That's what I took it as. The people who infiltrated Kemet.
They stole it. You must return it. He's talking to me. Go get what they stole, Rod. Because I took it personal. It's a direct message and a direct instruction from one of the ancestors. who was a wise elder. And then he gave me a treaty to know who did it, where them niggas came from, what they stole, but he don't know how to get it back. They all told the same story.
Yeah.
Elijah told us who did it and how they did it, but we didn't understand what he was telling us because the symbolism. We didn't understand the symbols.
Yep.
We think when he said fire Muhammad was a lie, that we didn't know that fire mean the wages, and Muhammad means praiseworthy. So he was the sacrifice in order to conceal the Claire Muhammad, the mother. Mirror opposite directly. He's exactly not what she is. She's dark-skinned, the dark mother, the Black Madonna. He's a pale-faced Turk. Right?
Yep.
He's a Mohammedan and she's a mama. And Muhammad also had a mama then. So no, there is no great man that didn't come from a great woman. Because only certain women can produce greatness. And it shows in the son that she raises. And the royal blood is betrayed by the noble character. So when mama teach you what's right, and papa teach you how to survive, and you take from both sides without taking sides, then you can break the generational curses that hold you back.
Yes, sir. Yeah. And you know, shout out to Elijah Muhammad, because he broke. I literally skipped to page 108 in Message to the Black Man. He's talking about the processional 25,000-year cycles. He's talking about Yaqub. He's talking about the 6,000-year cycles. Like, all this information been out for a minute. You know what I'm saying? And I saw somebody that said, Cola, what's the best comedic book you can study or buy? There's so many. I think that's the thing. It's so many. It's all like Hansel and Gretel.
If you want a good comedic teacher that's over here that put out books, tapes, videos, and have programs, look up Muwada Ashby in Florida from the Egyptian Semi Yoga. Muwada Ashby is the highest ranking Egyptian priest on the land that's not in the custody of the government. His only counterpart is Malachi York.
That's deep. I was trying to find, I believe I might have some of his work, but I couldn't find it just yet. But that's deep though. Because I didn't know that Dr. York had appeared, someone who was on his level in regards to teaching, the metaphysics and comedic sciences.
Look, my job is all the tribes on the land got a doctrine. I had to study them before I start my work. Because I have to unify the tribes by showing them where their elders already told them the shit that I'm telling them. I'm just weaving it together, and Elijah said, make it plain enough for a baby to understand. And Malachi said, use right knowledge, right wisdom, right understanding. And Larry Hoover said, it ain't gang banging, it's brain banging, hit the books. Right? And Angel Bay say, stand firm in your convictions and don't be moved. And Tookie say, even if they freeze you in ice, stand your ground. Hold fast to your manhood and your principles and your values, and teach it to our sons. And use us as examples of the struggle, the protracted struggle, been a 500-year struggle to get the imposters off the land that look like us, but them niggas ain't us. They've been misleading us through the whitewashing the history to believe that the paleface had some kind of power. All of them puppets.
Yeah.
All of them puppets.
Yeah.
I don't want no puppet. I want the puppet master. You can keep Pinocchio. I want Geppetto. Right? So I don't stop my strategy with Pinocchio. I get rid of him easy. I just cut his strings.
That part.
But Geppetto gonna go get another Pinocchio.
Yep. Yeah. And can you kind of share what, because now we're talking about the black nobility again. Can you kind of tap into a little bit of that for those who may be late or didn't see our last cipher that we had?
Yeah, so the black nobility is really some melanated beings called Jews. They live in Europe, but they got gated communities in New Jersey and New York where they run our government as the hand behind your friendly local politician called senator, congressman, or president, vice president. They was taking the orders from the people who held the title to the corporation called the United States. They was the stakeholders. And if you know American law, you will know that the prime interest of all of the workers is to maximize the profit of the stakeholders. There's no other reason for them to be there. And the stakeholders was some heavily melanated Scottish Rite Freemasonic Temple members called themselves Moorish Zionist Jews, called themselves Moors, called themselves conquistadors, called themselves Huguenots. They changed their name like regular people change their draws because they don't want you to nail down who they is and where they came from. But because they patterns never change, you can trace them all the way back across the water, over the Iberian Peninsula, through North Africa, through the Turkish Empire, into what they call today the Middle East, into Babylon and Assyria, where they set up the temples in the Babylonian Empire. And they came on Mount Hermon. And they called the fallen ones. And they are the ones that tried to take over. And now we can officially say we handed their ass back to them in such a way.
Yep, there's that. Now, is that tied to what we would see in regards to, excuse me, in the Bible when they talk about those fallen angels? Is that are we talking about the same types of?
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. The only difference between them and the human is that they got a longer lifespan and they tend to be non-reproductive with the rest of the humans. That's the major difference. But you can't look at them and say they're not human. From the galactic term for human, Tare, they would be called Tare too. But Tare means from the land of Ra.
Yes, sir. That will go back to Tamari.
Tamari is the land of Mary, or land of the mother, Isis. And they renamed Mary a rebellious woman in Europe under the patriarchal usurping of the divine matriarch. And don't think they ain't had no rotten sluts helping them.
Look, that's how they get to, that's how they slither their way in, man. A lot of times, more times than not, they use the power of the PUSS, you know why. So that's how you get in, Done it. That's a rinse and repeat method that they've done over and over and over again, unfortunately. Yeah, that's deep. Man, that's deep. So there's a lot of places I want to go. So now somebody had a good question I want to bring up. It was in regard, here it is right here. They say they talk about the ancient Egyptians adopting the Sphinx, then how come America has the jaguar temples? And how do you think they adopted the cat as a deity from America or the Maya?
The Sphinx was left way before the construction of the pyramids. It's a timekeeper.
That dates back to the Atlantic era in Lemuria, right?
The reason it was put there is when the age of Leo was coming in, there was supposed to be an alignment that the Sphinx would align with in the stellar motif. You gotta remember, we got something called precession, where over time the stars in the sky are not in the same position as they was once before. And so during the age of Leo, was it Leo, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Leo. Yeah, in the age of Leo. So it was an alignment with that in a commemoration of, that was a woman. The Sphinx was a female lioness.
Yep.
Right? But they recarved her head so that we won't never know that the Sphinx has always been the symbol for the royal blood of the feminine, the grail blood. The lion has always been the symbol of royalty. This is why you see the statue of Enki holding the lion with one arm and the headlock. Right? Because he's saying he has the royal throne in his grip. You don't have a royal throne as the king if you ain't got the righteous queen.
Can you say that loud? Can you say that one more time for the people in the back?
You can't have the throne as the king without having the righteous queen. She the one who makes you the king. She the kingmaker. No king has been made the king without a woman being made queen first. She had to be the queen in order to give him the rulership right from the creator goddess. It's the same with the gods. The women are creator gods, men are the ruler gods, but the right to rule come from the one who creates. That's simple logic.
That part, yeah, that's deep. It's real deep, but a lot of people don't know that though. And look, and shout out
That's
to
true. Because under the patriarchal system, they would have us believe that somebody could knight you king. The king, the word king traced back to an old term, kung, which means the father of the house. How you gonna be a father if you ain't got nobody to bear children? You can't be the father of the house without the queen of the house. Because that's who you using to raise children. Your children is your legacy because they carry your genetics into the future for you to return back in a different age and see the result of the work you put in ages gone by. So all these babies now, they put their work in. They coming back to experience the golden age. And we don't have any option but to take the steps to produce the golden age for the next 7 generations, because that's why they're here.
Yep.
That's their sole contract. So whose job is it to give it to them?
Ours.
Yeah.
And look, I wrote a book in 2019 called Star Seeds. And I went into everything that we talking about tonight. I went into a whole lot of that. And like right there is the teacher. The teacher's name is Takyan. And shout out to, I think it was, I want to say Urban Instinct, that asked the question about what does Takyan mean? And what I did, I shared with him that Takyan means it's a particle that has the ability to travel faster than the speed of light, right? And so that's why I named that teacher that name specifically, because at this point, that's what we're experiencing. And then the book even goes into talking about the crafts that came, you know what I'm saying, from Sirius, that came throughout the galaxy, that came to do exactly what we're seeing happen in real time. And I think this came out in like 2019, 2020. But these are all things that we've learned like through the studies that we've had, including the crafts flying into the inner earth, all that. So it's like I'm seeing it now on these shows that I don't remember seeing any of that, but like I said, it goes back to them being able to monetize our information, that our teachers were murdered. Like they tried to take Dr. Blair out. They killed his wife, for sharing the truth. So it's like, this is definitely a time that we got to be grateful and thankful for the access that we have to this information, but use it to, make actionable steps to elevate our frequencies so we can kind of experience this transformation that the planet and the solar system is going through.
Yeah, so when we look back, they was cheating in the game. They was killing off all of the tribal teachers that was using the doctrines given to them to ease in tribal codes for the future. Right? From Noble Drew Ali usurped by some muftis and a secretary, and you got Malcolm X, right? You got all of those Panthers being infiltrated by niggas, right? So you can't keep saying that the enemy's somebody else when every time a prominent leader rise up to defend you, it's somebody that look like you tearing them down. You have to be wise enough to see that the enemy look more like you than you think. Because the most damage is done by the one that can get closest to the target. You have to worry about the snipers because they far and few between, right? But you have to worry about the one that come with the smiling face. They even wrote a song about it. Smiling faces, sometimes they don't tell the truth, right? So we see them come with the handshake. Beware of the handshake that hide the snake, right? And they make agreements with their fingers crossed behind their back because they never intended to keep the agreement. When we refuse to make agreements with them, they sign the X and say we put our name on it. So sooner or later, we gonna wake up and be like, wait a minute. You mean to tell me it was some black faces that pulled Emmett Till out of them folks' house to protect the community from a imaginary mob that wasn't thinking about him? And then they the only ones don't get charged in the case. But they can't get Emmett Till because the uncles, them old men down there, wouldn't have let no paleface come in there and get no baby. You're not finna do it. We finna have OK Corral in this motherfucker right here. Right? We forget that it was a so-called Hebrew Israelite that shot Martin Luther King mama in the face. In church. A black Jew. We forget Farrakhan said, until we overcome this Jew, we can't get out of this condition. Because we keep thinking that an Ashkenazi is a Jew, or a Sephardi is a Jew, or a Khazarian is a Jew. Them not Jews. Them converts. And they the shield, the blood shield, the Rothschild that conceals the black hand that's saturated with the blood of the righteous. Right? I caught them red-handed. And then I told the people. I showed people what they was doing. Because once you know what they doing, you know how to defend yourself spiritually. Your higher self already know what actions to take. When we identify, they conjure spells.
Yes, sir. That's facts.
Knowing is half the battle, right?
Yep.
In one step of action, that's 51%. That's controlling interest in your whole destiny.
Yes, sir.
And when you fully reach your 360-degree vision, that's when you be 100% in control of your destiny.
Whew. Man, listen, we were just talking about that on the show with Arisha Stone. I was talking about that, and I started talking about the elders and the ascended masters and how they got 720 degrees, right? So you said a lot. I got to bring a question up to the floor real quick, then I'm gonna ask mine. Shout out to Miss Ladybug. I say it says, gratitude, Chief. My mama, a bird out of Mississippi with Lee in the name. What tribe are the birds likely from, and what would you do with land in Mississippi?
I think they primary Choctaw, or Chata is the right name. Choctaw is the Dawes Roll interpretation of the name Chata. In the bird family, the last name is derived from the chicken fry. We used to have bird fries in the South. We used to have pit masters. The Pittman family was the pit masters. They used to do the barbecue contests for the celebrations that Big Mama used to have.
That's deep. Yeah, that's
all
deep.
All our names, our tribal names, is related to nature.
Yeah, just like the Orisha and the Netchers.
Yeah. So the people that they call Shaw, those are Shoshone from the Shoshone River region. Upshaw comes from the upper Shoshone, which is the upper Shoshone River region. But that's not their name, that's their geography. But in the English language, because of the exonym of their geography that was thrust upon them by the colonizer, they adopted the last names that represented the location that their tribal origin is from.
Yeah, that's deep. That's real deep. So the I forgot what they call the cat. What do you call the people in Israel now? The Kazdians. What do you call them again? The ones that Khazarians, right? Okay, so now just for clarity's sake, right? Who are the original ones that they would call quote unquote the JEWs? Would that not be folks?
If you look up Morris Zionist Jew, you'll see a picture of him. If you look up Adolf Hitler's Black Genocide, you'll see a book about him.
Yeah, that's deep. That's real deep. Okay. All right. So let me see what this is. Yeah, nah, this is deep, man. Like for real. So in regards to hold on, she got one more.
Look, they started calling them Jews, and it had nothing to do with Judah. Right. They started calling them Jews because the royal families traded in jewelry.
So that's an acronym, or is that an acronym, or
it's short for jewelry.
Abbreviation.
Yep.
That's deep. That's real deep.
Yeah, the jewelry. That's why if you go to New York and what they call the Diamond District, all of the high city Jews is walk around with briefcases full of diamonds, but you better not touch one.
Oh yeah, well we see a lot of that in the movies. A lot of movies. Matter of fact, the one that just Ice Cube's son just dropped. What was it? The one, it was part 2. What's the name of that movie? It had the brother. What's the dude named Gerard Butler? Dang, what's the name of that movie? But anyway, they were diamond thieves, and like they kind of played out some of what we're talking about in the movie. But it was 2 of them. I cannot think of the name, but I know somebody in the tribe will drop it in the comments. But that definitely brings me to
them was the ones that the police been protecting since it was New Amsterdam. That's who the police came over here to be security for. Those are converts. And the jewelry badge that they wear on their lapels in Europe tell them which allegiance to which one of the black nobility families they have. Right? If you type in European royal black face brooch, it'll come up and you'll see it on their lapel pin. That's telling you the family that pale face is have an allegiance with, that give them something that look like power.
Yeah, that's real deep. I'm trying to find a comment. It was a good question. I'm trying to find it. It was somebody that wanted to, I want to find it so I can bring it up. But I believe the question was, can you break down what the difference is in regards to last names, with the last name White and I think Brown? Is there any symbolism to that?
Yeah, the Brown is Cleveland Indians. Last name Brown. Browns used to be one of the biggest clans of Mississippians on the land. The ones who got the name White was actually being classified as don't touch this family. So they was one of the 9 treaty tribes who was off limits to the colonizers, or else they would make the rest of the tribes nut the fuck up by royal status.
Now, when you say the royal status, are you talking about the people in England, or are you
tribally over here? Okay. Our royalty don't look like European royalty.
Got you.
Like our big mamas sit in front of the big house that used to be called Big Mama House until she got poisoned by a dirty Moor. And then he hired his pale face management crew to pretend to be Massa.
Yeah, that's deep. That's real deep.
And they kept them in line with something called slave patrols or police.
Yep. Here we go, right here. This was the question. Now, how does that pretty much the receipts that I see that everything is confirming everything you're saying is the footage that, if y'all want to look it up, family, of the Pope before he transitioned, going down the line, kissing the feet of what we call the black nobility. How does that tie in? Like, is that what we're talking about? That police force that's ran through that Vatican and the papal and all,
Those are the owners. Those are the owners. Those are the Pope's handlers. Those are the ones whose bidding he's been doing. But now they got to give it all back because they lost the war. Look, they used to, when they moved to Switzerland to be the world's bankers, they built an underground city under the Alps. Used to didn't even acknowledge the underground city until Donald Trump got elected in 2017, and Interpol, along with several foreign militaries, went in there and raided them. And now they've been cleaned out and they're doing tours of it now.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'll be gosh darned.
Yeah. Wow. And then they trying to act like the defense stuff they had, they trying to act like it ain't been operational in years. They just dismantled that stuff.
That's deep.
Now remember, Switzerland is the only neutral country in the world
that's never been in a war.
Well, they was in a war before they became the neutral country.
Since then, they have had no.
It was the 1800s.
Okay, right.
That's when the dirty Moors used the cover of the war to flee into Switzerland. And that's when they recruited the Khazarians to be their cover story, to keep them a secret while they rule as the man behind the curtain. The Khazarian Jews was the cat's paw for those black Jews. They sent them to places to do their bidding, but before that, before the 1800s, they came themselves. Christopher Columbus was one. His navigator, Pedro del Negro, was one. They was being exiled in the Inquisition and the French Revolution. Remember, they formed a great inquisitor to oust the Moors from Europe. They made it look like it was a religious conflict of Christians versus Muslims, but it was Europeans ousting the settler colonizer Moors that came in 711. Right? They told us that they civilized them people. Right? If you understand the effects that civilization can have on uncivilized people, they would see you as a god. So my question is, why would they kick them out? Why would you kick God out your land? What was they doing? But when you look at the statues over there, they show you what they was doing. They was eating babies. They was molesting kids. They was drinking blood. They was doing blood magic rituals, money magic rituals, sex magic rituals. It's in the artwork over there. You can't walk through Rome and turn 2 blocks and don't see a bunch of peckers hanging in your face. Statuary of priests with his gown wrapping around young boys.
Sick shit.
Yeah, that's why they got kicked out.
It's disgusting.
They don't want to admit it though.
Nah.
Because they want to get the appearance of being the bringers of civilization. But according to the castles on this land, we was already civilized.
That part. Big facts. Yeah, that's deep. And you know what? It's funny that you say that, because I was going to bring up the point of the petroglyphs, right? The petroglyphs that we find in a lot of the caves, you know, in the crevices of the earth. Does that not depict and tell some of the ancient antiquity stories that we're talking about now, and kind of like how the hieroglyphs play in?
Not only the ancient stories, but it also tells the current story. It's like reading a tarot card. That's why a tarot card is even a thing.
God damn, yes,
remember, the history was wrote in advance and we lived it out in reverse. Right? So we coming up on the grand finale. Sooner or later, they gonna have to tell y'all who's who on the planet Earth. Who's the rightful heir? Who is the one who came to solve the problem of the colonizers on the land without going to bloody war to educate themselves above the condition? They gonna have to tell y'all. Right? Because the ones who's doing the work can't tell y'all that and expect y'all to believe it, because they've conditioned us that none of us ain't smart enough to figure out how to get from out of their trap. That ain't what my mama said.
They failed that miserably.
You know what I say?
Yeah,
they feel like that, but that ain't what my mama said.
Right, and that's why I say they failed at that miserably.
I believe my mama over all of them.
I know that's right. All day, every day. And you know, it reminds me of the and I was just talking about this like maybe a day or two ago, but like what we're talking about when you talk about the black nobility and those dirty Moors, for those who have seen the Haitian Revolution, the documentary 1804, you know, it's the collaborators, you know what I'm saying? Like,
look,
those
Napoleon wasn't no pale face. Napoleon Bonaparte wasn't no pale face. But if you look at the depictions that they give us in the history books, he was a Huguenot. Huguenot is dark Frenchman. He was a Huguenot. Huguenot is dark Frenchman. 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 Huguenot is dark F when he took he sent his brother. He didn't even go himself. He sent his brother to command the troops in the Haitian aggression. Should have left them people alone, because he getting a spiritual ass whooping now.
Yes, sir. That's funny, because that's what McIntyre told them too. He said, "Yeah, y'all might kill me now, but trust me, I'm coming back as a mosquito." And he came back, dumping off malaria. Listen, boy, we got some powerful, warriors. And
after the Haitian Revolution, look at the Haitian migration pattern, and you're gonna find they went to two places: Florida and Louisiana.
And that goes back to what we talked about in the last episode when it comes to those two places.
The Gullah Wars was going on in Florida. They sent soldiers to fight because Big Mama said all hands on deck. Samoans sent people, Tongans sent people, Hawaiians sent people, Asians that lived in Alaska sent people to Florida. All of the Mississippian collective tribes across the land was sending all of their people south and east. This is what made them set up Georgia. Georgia was never supposed to be a state. It was a military buffer zone to stop the incursion of the tribes that was coming in from the west, from settling east on the Florida panhandle to go in and aid in the Gullah Wars that they call Seminole Wars. You tell who telling the story by what they call the war. We call them the Gullah Wars. The conquistadors call them the Seminole Wars because they say that it come from the root word Seminoles, which mean a mixed up one, which they say mean runaway slave, but that ain't what it really means. The root word is semi, which means half. Mixed breeds, mixed tribes. Look, when you pull up the picture, every of the Gullah Wars, they got a straight hair Native American and a brother standing on his left with an afro. And in the book, it's telling you that the slaves ran away and joined on to the Gullahs to fight in the war. Now, the problem is the people don't know that the nappy-haired brother was the chief. And the runaway slave was the one that looked like he was Asian. Because that's who they brought over first as their servants. From all of them long wars of the Ottomans and the Romans versus the Huns and Mongolians and their captives, they set up in what's called slave villages or peasant villages, right? And they would live off and tend to the local land for the land barons who became landlords over here. So when they first came, the first servants they brought was from the slave villages. They didn't start bringing the paleface over until the 1800s. They was using them to block us from entering into the institutions of economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. So they used the brown paper bag test as the determinant if you was light enough to enter into those clubs, those institutions.
Wow.
The problem was some of the yellow niggas that could pass was more militant than the dark nigga that felt like he was destitute. Because the one who was light-skinned and could pass, he had a taste of what freedom was like, what power was like. And he wanted that for his people. But remember, they brought them over here for them to get one drop of blood from us in the great melding pot of God's crucible. The Masonic Lodge is well aware of everything I'm saying They just won't say it out loud because it's a violation of the oath of the brotherhood. The speculative Mason cannot expose the operations of the operative Mason. They got to let him operate. The one that's the operant don't never need the lodge, because the principles of masonry and the building oneself to manhood is hardwired into his genetics. So the speculative Mason watch from a distance to see exactly how will he build himself after this tragedy. And then they take notes. And the notes become the instructional manual for the next wave of raised and past masters.
God, dog, boy, we're gonna need the fire department, boy. Man, you blowing things all flames all over. Somebody said we was twins on there. I don't know who. I can't find that one. That's funny because the first one I was looking. I like, big bro, dude look like my pops, man. That's crazy. I gotta look in and seeing where where them genes, where the lineages.
That's that Mississippi clay dirt bloodlines.
Hey, it is. Yeah, I take it, man, because I know we sure migrated to the gullah before we went up top. So that sounds about right to me. Definitely. Man, this is dope. So let me see if I can get a couple of questions real quick from the tribe before. I did see a lot of them. There's so many, family. Y'all forgive me because I know I won't be able to get to everybody, but I'm gonna definitely try to get to a few before we get this thing wrapped up tonight. But okay, so let's go with I'll go with this one. This one's for earlier. It says, are the extraterrestrials the Anunnaki?
Not all of them. You got multiple extraterrestrial species that's observing the conflicts on the earth between the earthborn and the invaders. They watching us jump through the hoops of the cycles, and they all rooting for the earthborn to win. So we won. Shouldn't have never asked me to play the game. You ain't want me to win.
Yeah, that's deep. That's real deep. I got a couple more that I had started earlier to try to come back to. So this is one I would love to get your opinion on. That's why I put that one put it to the side. What's your take on this one, Susan Ralph? What the Moai and Easter Islands means bad beings in Cantonese, thin lips pointing over. What do you think about that?
Well, you got to remember what made them call them that, right? And when did they encounter the statues? If you encounter the statues before the colonizer come for the first time, and you become terrified by the statues because you ain't ever seen nothing like it before, and then you give it a name, but sooner or later you start getting used to seeing them, but the name doesn't change. Right, so the people at Easter Island, they was casualties of the nuclear holocaust. That's why they disappeared, and all of that soot that built up was from the sediment of the ice age when it was frozen over.
That's deep. So what would you say in regards to? Do you feel like that this person is right when they say that they're bad, or do you feel like they're wrong in regards to
they was people like us?
Right.
Everybody, all of us ain't good and all of us ain't bad. And most of us are somewhere in the middle of the two.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. They're just a typical human. So I got another one. This one is mitochondrial DNA needed to ascend? And I'm assuming ascend to the next.
Absolutely. Look, if your mitochondria get turned off, your cells die. Anybody don't understand that? The powerhouse of the cell is the mitochondria. You get it from your mama. Without an active spiritual link to your mama, which is turns your mitochondria on, without that link, you can't do nothing but die. Because you have no way to power your cells. There's no energy coming through the mitochondria to replenish the cell's energy as it operates as a crystalline transmitter. That's what it is. The amino acids of the DNA are crystals, crystalline. It's just that we was using a carbon configuration in order to downsize the 12 strand over the eons to a 2 strand. The 2 strand DNA is the upgrade. The 12 strand DNA was the old bulky clunky original. You got to upgrade. This is why the sun keeps sending solar flares periodically changing the DNA. It's upgrades. When we evolve to a certain level, the sun gonna send the upgrade information and the earth gonna respond. The mitochondria ties you to the earth. And so when you tied to the earth, you tied to your mother. You tied to Mother Earth. That's why grounding works so well to help people stabilize their erratic mental and spiritual and emotional energy. Because now you tying into the greatest and oldest mother that we know of, and that's Mother Earth that we all emerged from. And the mitochondrial is the link. It's the Holy Ghost transmitter. The only reason why it can't turn up because you haven't developed your spiritual DNA to facilitate all of the energy. And that's why when they catch the Holy Ghost, all they can do is either dance or flop around like a fish.
That's deep.
Because there's too much energy coming in. We can't do nothing. You don't know what to do with it. You can't control it. But if you can control it, then you would be a Qigong master. You would be Yu-Gi-Oh!
That's deep.
Yeah, the Ifa religion takes us back to the old earth traditions, just like the Orisha tradition does. Right, just like the Yoruba tradition does. So when we get amnesia over here of our historical ancestral culture, we can look back on the common denominators. And then we can look over here and see that we still do all this shit in the church. We ain't never stopped being who we was. They just found a way to trick us into believing we was being somebody else.
Yep. Yeah.
And rebrand all of our cultural phenomena under their monetization systems.
Yep.
Everybody got their hand out. The church, the government, the politicians, the celebrities. Everybody got their hand out, pulling on your one little old dollar. Right? So it's by confusion that they depleting you of your energetic resource in order to dominate you without having to do it by physical force. But sometimes when you figure out the game, they use physical force to get you out the game because you be doing too good. They do a 1984 Philadelphia bombing on your ass because you living off your own grown vegetables and you saying to yourself and you teaching your people holistic living like Giant Africa was doing.
That's a whole show into its own, because you think about the Africas and the movement in Philly. You talk about Black Wall Street, and then you go into Rosewood, like all those, all autonomous, you know what I'm saying, self-deficient.
Everywhere right. And then you got to remember, I had Elder pull his book up called Confessions of an Economic Hitman. All of your immortalized outlaws were economic hitmen that was sent out to shut down the local big mama banks so they can institute a central banking system to wrestle the power away from the mothers across the land. The tribal mothers was the purse holders. And now they got to give it all back to her. And they don't like it. And we don't care. We got the same compassion they have for us.
That's facts. Big facts. Yeah,
they want to know how they gonna live when we take our shit back. That's not my responsibility. How you live when we take our stuff back. I hope you live as miserable as we did. I hope it come in increments of 10, like you wish your suffering upon us in increments of 10.
That's fact.
And if we get to find some of these dirty players and take their head, I want to pull the guillotine lever.
That part. Yes, sir. Yeah.
We already discussed the Ibraham Trayori Putin thing.
Yeah, they wanted to say so. Yeah, we did. I think that was from earlier about the about. Well, I think what they were asking is, do you feel like Putin is legitimately backing him and has really supporting him?
I just the same way I said earlier. The old guard got to give it to the new guard.
They might have came in late. Check out if you'll be able to see the replay family in the live stream section of the channel, and then also the episode will be available soon once we can get in and get some editing done on and uploaded. But real quick, I got two more if we got time, Chief. One, Nicole's House of Wellness says she don't have a question, but she's curious about the Creole Pope in America, the first American Pope, which we kind of tapped in. I'm glad she asked that because we talked about it on our last interview, our last interview. But then also, I saw how they did a little switcheroo. What do you think was the reason of them doing what they did? Was saying he had a little bit of this, a little bit of that, instead of just putting a black one out? What do you think that was about?
Well, they can't openly admit he black until we realize what the one drop means. Right. He a mama's boy. That's trouble for the church. Because as a mama's boy, the odds is that he won't follow his mama wishes. And if she's a Creole with Louisiana and Haitian roots, he already know what understood need not be explained. Run back mama shit.
Well, there's that. So that's dope. And this will bring me to the last one I got, because I felt like this was a really good one too, regarding what all we spoke on. So 1G force. So okay, now they're exposed. There's a new energy here now. So now what do we do to use all of this information and energy to our benefit?
We got to reach critical mass of awareness between as many other tribes as possible. The individual members' education is the goal in order to get them to be prepared to receive their birthright. Unfortunately, we're going to reach a point where we're going to have to give them shock and awe in order to wake their ass up. I don't know what it's going to look like, but it's going to be a massive release and download of information. And from there, that should wake their ass up. It could be anything from the Epstein files to the Diddy case, to the Podesta files, to the Hillary Clinton email scandal, or it could be something we ain't even seen yet. It could be some other event that we haven't even seen that triggered the shock and awe of information dump. It might be a computer hacker that spills top secret documents unredacted on the internet. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's a potential for a lot of those things, because of we have to get as many people aware of the shift by the ages and the shift by the authority to rule over the people of Earth. The mothers exercise first right of the earth right, and she's godfathered in through the oral tradition of the tribes, being the original law of the land. Following the oral tradition, she got a right to reclaim the land for the tribal mothers to restore balance back to the land. The whole concept or idea is to put the power where it belongs, to make everything run the way it's supposed to run, and Earth will become heaven again, and Atlas shrug and the parasites fall. Fuck them.
Yowzers. Yep. There's that. Man, yeah, that's deep. That's deep. Yeah, that was dope, man. I definitely appreciate it, bro. It was another one of them ones. I knew this was gonna be a classic, just like the first one. It seems like time just flies by so fast, man. It was going on 3 hours. It seemed like 30 minutes to me, But hey, it is what it is. I appreciate you, big bro. Like that was another classic one for the archive, man. It definitely was for sure. Did you want to leave the tribe with anything else on the way out before we shut down the fire session tonight?
Yeah, each one teach one. We all gonna reach some.
Yes, sir.
Are you old in the way, niggas? Move out these babies' way. Help them if you know how to help them. If you don't, get out their way. We already had our turn. We had our day in the sun, our chance to shine. We blew it. Now we take our experience to show the youth how not to blow it like we did.
Yes, sir.
And pass it forward, pay it forward. The more people that you can teach them. Because the more you teach, the further you'll reach. You'll never know. You might wake up the next king of the earth.
Yes, sir.
By just teaching them a little bit of truth. You don't know who you're going to reach. But the reach is critical for the redemption of the righteous, which is the tribes with the rightful status of blood right, air right, heritable birthright. And they know who we is. They've been following us since birth. So don't think that because they paper genocided us, that they still don't know who we are. They know who we are.
That part.
They just killed our public record, but they kept private records.
Yes, sir. That's facts. Nah, that was dope, man. I appreciate you for sure. And family, we put the the cash out. We appreciate the super chats, the all the super chats and the super comments and all that. We definitely appreciate it. Gratitude to y'all for showing up and showing out, man. We definitely appreciate the love, the support, and yeah, we definitely looking forward to making it do what it do and bringing it back. So with that, Big Chief, I definitely appreciate you, man. I salute you for all the jewels that you've been dropping in the Ashe streets, man, and it's definitely much appreciated, man. So I feel the love and support from the tribe, and I want to make sure we do everything we can to send it right back to them, because united we stand, divided we fall. It ain't over till we win. And yeah, we here again. The ancients have returned. It's go time. That's facts. Yes, sir. All right, family. So we'll see. Yes, sir. We'll see y'all on the next episode. This has been another episode of the African Spirituality Experience. I am your host, Arisha Bami. Shout out to the Big Chief. Rod Hayes came and burnt it down again, and I look forward to doing it again, family. So we'll see y'all on the next episode. We appreciate y'all, family. Big bro, I appreciate you, man. It's been an honor and a pleasure once again. I look forward to doing it again.
For sure. I appreciate it, brother.
Yes, sir. All right, family. We out. Peace. Odabo.
Ẹni tó gbàgbé ilé ṣàpò ìyàgbọ́ tẹ́ǹtì ẹni takísà ní tàtàn ò bá padà sílé anítìjàkọ ẹja lọ pé eégún mo sí ẹni gbẹ́rẹ́ ìpàkọ́ forsake not your ancestors and praise your